Welcome back into the Dead Arm Sports Podcast. Josh and Jell here coming at you live on a Tuesday. Have a
Tuesday.
have a fun episode for you today. NFL schedule dropped last week, so we're going to dive into that a little bit deeper, talk about teams, games we're excited for, maybe talk about teams that you kind of like how their schedule finishes, begins, whatever. We're going to cover it all for you. Got the Byron Nelson recap from this last weekend, and then
Byron.
that's like fitting for that. That just sounds
perfect.
Yeah, spot on. PGA Championship week is here as well, so we will dive into that along with our second draft of the majors. So we'll run through that for you as well at the end of the episode. Going to kick it off with a question of the day today, Jell. We're recording on Tuesday, the 16th of May. It is National Barbecue Day. So in fashion of barbecue, we're going to do a keep, trade, cut. And I might have to tweak it. We'll see what your thoughts are on it. But for barbecue, we're going to go keep, trade, cut, brisket, pulled pork, chicken.
Chicken's cut.
Okay, chicken's out. That's what I was thinking.
That's the easy one.
We'll get rid of chicken, then we'll throw barbecue ribs in. I wasn't sure how you felt about chicken, so as soon as you said that, I don't
have chicken,
like barbecue chicken.
I have chicken like 4 or 5 days a week. Like I don't need to add barbecue chicken in the rotation. Ribs or pulled. Okay. Okay. Do you prefer ribs with? Now I've got my answer already here, but you brought up ribs. Do you prefer dry rub or do you prefer sauced up?
I like both. The only thing with ribs where I find myself leaning one way or the other, I like when they fall off the bone. I don't like having to work and tear them off the bone. So for me, if the ideal rib, it doesn't matter if it's sauce, dry rub, as long as it's got good flavor, good with it, but it's got to be like a fall off the bone or at least a little tender enough where it just pulls right off the bone.
Yeah, there's some people that like the kind of like chewy, like for the texture, and it's like, I don't know. I'd rather just have like be able to for it to almost just slide right off. Yeah. Like I pick up the bone and like, I can almost just like push it with like, push it over with my lips. And it's like, it's that's it. Yeah. I prefer a dry rub with sauce on the side in case I feel like doing a little dipsy do in the old spicy barbecue action. Like but I love a good dry rub myself, and why? Oh God damn it. Dirty dog.
Couldn't help it.
Oh my God. The old raw. Never mind.
Yeah.
We'll put that explicit tag on. I like it good, but I prefer dry rub because I don't know. Sometimes I feel like the sauce can like cover up it can almost like if the meat isn't quite as well done, like if you put enough sauce on it, it's going to be moist. So God damn it. Okay. Well, I'm going to marry brisket. I mean, that's my go-to every time I get barbecue down here is briskets. When it's done right now, so you have to do brisket right, because if you don't cook it right, and like brisket's a very cheap cut of meat, like that, it's that's the kind of idea behind it. So you have to smoke it low and slow, and there's a really like there's like a very specific like point of tenderness with it, where if you don't cook it long enough, it's going to stay too tough. But if you cook it too long, it's either you don't want to dry it out at the same time. So like you have to keep that temp really low and just cook it for a long time. There's often like a lot, like multiple, sessions where you have to take it out of the smoker, flip it, all the, I don't know. I don't have a smoker. I've seen it been done before, but I've never done it myself, so I'm not going to consider myself a barbecue connoisseur or anything. But brisket's going to be my all-time keeper. My trade, I was. I love pulled pork, man. Like good pulled pork is so good, but when ribs are done right, that's like, especially when there's like the perfect amount of fat on those ribs, where it's like, it's. I think I'll go ribs 2 and pulled pork 3. Or I guess trade. I don't want to trade anything. I want to
Right.
like. I guess if I'm just gonna rank them, I'll go brisket, ribs, pulled pork. But pulled pork is like that's
Yeah.
prime. You could probably get more value for the ribs than the pulled pork. So I guess for the value, I'll trade the ribs, and so hopefully I can get something back that's a higher ranking or a higher ranked meat back,
Right.
or at least a high end side. Maybe like a jalapeno mac and cheese comes back.
Ooh.
Or if I traded the pulled pork, maybe I just get back, coleslaw.
Right. No,
So I'll go trade on the ribs and I'll cut the pulled pork, even though I don't want to.
Right.
All that sounds amazing. I had barbecue last weekend, or I guess this would have been 2 weekends ago after playing 18. Went and got barbecue at this place. Shout out to Hard 8 Barbecue, hashtag not a sponsor, but second best barbecue I've ever had. And fire. It's just old school. You see the barbecue pits, you see the firewood as you're walking in, and
nice.
Like that they use for the smoker and everything. It's next time you get down here, maybe we'll have to check it out. It's pretty sweet.
For sure. That'd be sweet. No, I'll make this short and sweet. I'm the exact same way. Keeping the brisket, I'll trade the ribs, and I'll cut the pork, which again, I'm not happy about it because I love a good barbecue pulled pork sandwich. So, although I wonder too if the trade value, more people tend to like probably pulled pork than ribs. So maybe there's a little bit more value in that. But again, I like what you were thinking with if ribs are done right, the value, you're going to get a higher piece in the trade back,
right?
As opposed
maybe
to
you get back that smoked chicken, or you get a high, the high end side versus pulled pork on the market. I don't know what that
might be like
pig is fetching.
Coleslaw and baked beans or something like
right,
that. Just
like your just old cheap staples versus hey, you may be able to get nice like loaded sweet potato or something for
some ribs,
for the ribs. God
no.
I'm having an amazing meal tonight. I'm going surf and turf. I've got a bacon wrapped beef tenderloin that I'm gonna make, and and some butterfly shrimp.
Oof,
going surf and turf tonight. So this conversation has me even more pumped for my dinner.
Well, I will get on a plane once we're done recording, and I will meet you for dinner.
Adios, buddy. See you guys.
We can be found
live listeners. You're the only ones that are getting this.
Yes. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Go to YouTube, type in Dead Arm Sports into that search bar, subscribe, click the bell there. That way you know when our live episodes drop. We monitor the chat. You can ask us any questions during our live feed. Otherwise, hit us up on our socials at Dead Arm Sports, at DasGel, at DasJPEG, and we will hit you back with any questions that you have. Subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send us a screenshot, and we will swag you up with some Dead Arm Sports goodies. Gonna dive in head first to that NFL schedule release.
Diving head first, like freaking Garrett Mitchell diving into second base and tore up his shoulder. We'll talk more MLB tomorrow or on the next episode, but God damn it.
Yeah. Head to schedule drop, and gonna kick it off the season with a game that in years past, everyone would have probably been like, what in the world are they doing? But we have the Detroit Lions opening up the season in Kansas City. So get a little Motown versus Barbecue City going on there.
Have you had Kansas City barbecue?
Yeah, it's solid.
I don't know. I only had it once, but
it was kind of sloppy.
Or Guy Fieri just led me to the wrong spot because I went to what is it called? Diners, dips, and Dodge, duck, drip, dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge.
Yeah. Yes, but no, this should be a good one. Obviously, the defending Super Bowl champions, Kansas City Chiefs, and the Detroit Lions, a team that is one of the heavy favorites to win the NFC North this year, an up and coming team. And yeah, we'll get to see this Detroit team right off the bat playing the premier team in the NFL, and should be a pretty solid one on Thursday Night Football. Should have some fantasy implications from that game too to kick it off. So it should be pretty solid. Well, Jahmyr Gibbs action.
It'll be interesting to see if Jahmyr Gibbs right off the bat is like this stud. I mean, they took him at 12 overall. The intent is to probably use him up within the first 5 years that they have him under contract. Are they going to start that clock day one? And if you're the Lions, you should. I mean, there's going to be a nice mixture of David Montgomery in there, obviously, but it's a pretty tough matchup. I mean, this is the first time that the Lions are coming into a season with any sort of expectations since maybe that year they made the playoffs with Jim Caldwell that one season. And then they went into the next season thinking, hey, maybe the Lions are actually on the rise. Stafford stayed healthy. Calvin Johnson is the best receiver in football. What I don't know. That was what was that? At least a decade ago, it feels like. And that was the last time they came in with any sort of expectations, and they flopped that following year. And I believe Caldwell might have gotten fired the following season after the first winning record that Detroit had. And I felt like it might have been decades. So this is the first time the Lions are coming in with expectations. They are the Vegas favorites to win the division. I think that we're probably going to agree on this, that they start out 0-1, given that they're going into KC. But how do you think they'll fare? You think they'll crumble like a cookie, or do you think that they'll show that, hey, last year, the back half of last year when they finished the season like 7-1 or whatever in their final 8, I don't know the exact record, something like that. Or do you think they'll revert back to the Lions that we have grown to know, and Jared Goff is going to, shrink like at times he did, especially his last year with the Rams? What kind of expectation do you put on the Lions in this game? I know we're obviously talking 3.5 months out, but it's never too early to look at week one.
Yeah, no, I expect them to put up a pretty good fight. I mean, typically that first week of the season, really sloppy. People are coming out of training camp. A lot of the starters won't play in any of the preseason games. So typically you see a pretty sloppy game. One thing I was going to say when you're talking about Jahmyr Gibbs too, is it'll be funny to watch all of the people tilting with that drafted Jahmyr Gibbs and or David Montgomery and trying to figure out, should I start them in this one, and trying to figure out what that work share is going to be between both of them. So that'll be always a fun battle to see.
What would you think if you're just talking snaps off the bat? I bet Craig Reynolds or whoever their third string back gets a few snaps, but if you're just saying between those two and you're totaling it as a 100% of the snaps, what do you think week one? I mean, I'm thinking it might be Montgomery 65, 35.
I think as far as like the actual like running back duties, I think it's going to be heavy David Montgomery, but I think Gibbs is going to be in there on passing downs. And also they have said that they're going to line him up in the slot too. So they're going to use him all over the field. So I think he'll be on the field quite a bit just because he is so dynamic. He is unbelievable, and he's got the ball in his hands in the open field. So you can't not have him on the field, especially with the, for lack of better words, dumbass Jameson Williams being suspended for 6
No, that's the perfect word. He doesn't deserve a better word than that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's backtrack 2 off seasons ago when Ron Rivera, or was it 2 off seasons ago, or was it maybe it wouldn't have been last off season. So I think 2 years ago when Ron Rivera said they envision Antonio Gibson being used in the Christian McCaffrey role. Now we're hearing that same thing out of Detroit, that's the expectation. Do you think Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson actually follow through with that? Or is this another sleight of hand card trick
They could eventually because Gibbs is that dynamic. Antonio Gibson's fine. He never really got the opportunity to be that bell cow running back with J.D. McKissick there in Washington, but
McKissick, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Fantasy wise.
Yeah. So frustrating. But I think Jahmyr Gibbs is a way better talent than Antonio Gibson is. So I could see that. I don't know with the money that they invested in David Montgomery, at least this first year, if you're going to see that. I think, again, you'll see Gibbs quite a bit on third downs, passing situations in there for passing plays. But I think they're going to use Montgomery as kind of their workhorse back as far as like handoffs running goes.
Yeah, for sure. I would think so too. Let's stick with Thursday night football and we'll get let's go a little deeper into that schedule. So this is the first season that there are 4 teams scheduled to play 2 Thursday night football games, which means 2 short weeks rather than just 1. The Bears, the Steelers, the Saints, and the Jets. Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, you're not giving these teams an extra bye week. You've already increased the number of games to 17 games. It's eventually going to get to 18. I think that feels inevitable at this point. Yet you only give these teams still 1 bye week. And you got 4 squads now that have 2 Thursday night games. Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, is the NFL getting too greedy? Are they getting too cute? I mean, you could, without these 4 teams getting a Thursday night football game, you could put in teams. There are 4 teams, I believe, that have 0 primetime games. I think that's Atlanta, Houston, Indy, and I think there's one more that have 0 primetime games. You could put those 4 teams into these games rather than having 4 teams that are playing 2 Thursday night football games. Do you think they're getting a little too cute, a little too greedy? I mean, there were a shit ton of bad games last year. I've got an example of a few. Week 3, Cleveland at Pittsburgh, aka Jacoby Beef Brisket and Kissing Titties starting in week 3. Week 5, that unbearable Colts at Denver game that finished 12-9 and went into overtime.
Blocking that out of my memory until right now.
I'm sorry. I felt bad. I felt bad doing it. The next week 6, Washington beats Chicago 12-7. So the winning team 2 straight weeks scores 12 points. The following week, Arizona at New Orleans, garbage teams. Week 10, Carolina at Atlanta. Week 14, the Rams at Vegas with a 17-16 finish. So there were some really bad games last year, and the schedule looks a lot more attractive this year. So, I mean, but I think they were trying to get away from that and give Amazon gave them a shit ton of money, and they're trying to pay them back for all that money that they got. But these 4 teams that have multiple Thursday night games, I don't know. These players oftentimes say that if they play Sunday, they just spend Monday and Tuesday rehabbing, get in 1 practice Wednesday, and then they're going to have to play again Thursday. They got to do that twice now.
Yeah, I think that's why we see some sloppy Thursday games, just because guys aren't fully recovered from that Sunday. You don't have a ton of time to run through your game plan. You're just kind of running through no-pad practices because you don't want anybody to get hurt or push anybody too hard for these games. I was looking too, I hadn't really noticed that at this point in time. So I was kind of just skimming through some of these and just notably looking at the Bears schedule. And both of those, I thought maybe they have a late week 13 bye. So I thought maybe one of them would be coming off of the bye or going into the bye, but it's not. They play that Sunday before and then they play the Sunday after both Thursday nights. So yeah, that not a huge fan of that. And I think you're going to see some teams that will really be showing in some of those games, but I don't know why they just don't. And I get it because obviously it's a primetime game. It's the only game on, well, primetime game, but
oh my God.
It's just, I think for that
Amazon time,
that game especially, you should have each team play at once. Like you said, there's a couple teams that didn't get it slotted into that at all, and I think they should. I think that's only fair. You're trying to make schedules as fair as possible, and they do a fairly good job of that for the most
They
part.
do.
I feel like, especially
they
for
do a
all
really
the
good job, I
logistics and
think.
everything. But this is something that I think you could definitely do. Or worst case, have that one of the Thursdays going into their bye week, or put them on a Monday night the following week. Give them an extra rest day then, or something. Reward them for doing that. I mean, that's really bad that teams are expected to have short turnarounds twice in the season. And I think the Bears is within a month of each other too, if I'm not mistaken. I'll relook at that, but I think one of theirs is in early November and then it's early December.
The Jets have, reading off the schedule. This is riveting. But
I guess the Bears, their first one is October 5th against the Commanders, and then their next Thursday is the 11th again, or November 9th. So, I mean, that's pretty much within a month of each other.
The Jets are twice within 5 weeks. I think the Steelers are twice within, no, that's about, I think that's 6 weeks. So, but I mean, point is, it's not like these 4 teams are playing the first 4, within the first 4 weeks and then the last 4 weeks of Thursday Night Football. You're going to have 2 short weeks within 1 month or 5 weeks. And for the Bears, with no bye week in between. So that's a beating, man, especially for a young team. And, and we saw Justin Fields with his injury issues, obviously this season. So you got to hope that he holds up, but I, looking at the schedule overall, it's much stronger than last year. That prime time game. I mean, they kick off week 2, Vikings, Eagles. That was a great game last year. Unfortunately, got the Giants in there the next week. They're gonna be so bad this year. Good God. I'm never laying off. Even if they make the playoffs, I'm still gonna be right about them being a bad team. Lions, Packers, though, the following week you got Broncos, Chiefs. We'll see if the Broncos can come back off of that Sean Payton, with Sean Payton in house. Bengals, Ravens, that's going to be strong, thinking that, assuming health with the Ravens. Dolphins, Jets, Seahawks, Cowboys, a couple playoff teams. So you got some juicy matchups in here. It's better than, I'm not expecting the shit show for a lot of the games that it was last year. So I guess bravo to the NFL and fixing that schedule a little bit, but 4 of those teams, I think, got royally screwed.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought up the Bears. I wanted to kind of talk about their schedule a little bit. Get the Packers to bookend the season, get the opening day, and then to close out the season. So that I haven't seen that in a long time. Once in a while, we'll have Bears Packers to kick it off, but usually then they play again in the middle of the season. So it'll be interesting to have that opening, and then you don't see each team again until both team seasons could essentially be over at that point in a meaningless game, which usually you like to have a rivalry game, something on the line, but might not have mattered at what point in time this season with both the Bears and the Packers if it was going to be meaningful either. But one thing I wanted to take a look at too with their schedule is if the Bears
it could very well be meaningful for both teams. We could be talking about wild card spots for either of these teams.
True. No, that's a good point. The Bears have a week 13 bye, like I had mentioned, and they get the benefit of playing a 4th place schedule this season. So I just want to kind of run through this. The beginning of the season, they're at Tampa, at New Orleans, at Washington versus Carolina. So you got 3 out of the 4 NFC South teams, and then throw Washington in the mix there, which those could potentially be winnable games depending on how this offense looks. And then to end the season, after their bye week, you've got versus Detroit, which is going to be a tough game, but it's in Chicago. Go to Cleveland, which what Deshaun Watson's going to show up there. You get Arizona in Soldier in December. So you've got Kyler Murray coming into a cold environment. And then
you got McCoy if they decided to shut down Kyler.
Then you got Atlanta coming in the second to last week of the season, which they're probably going to be in the works for possible number 1 pick. So we'll see what happens there. And then you finish up at Green Bay, which again, Green Bay we'll see what happens with the season. If that is something that Green Bay is just kind of done and doesn't have a ton to play for, the Bears have kind of a favorable schedule if this offense can somewhat show up. So I'm not getting my hopes up. I expect them to be right in the middle of the pack, but this is a nice schedule.
Schedule matters, man. I know that people like to make fun of like, oh, what, you know what teams you're playing, you already know where you're playing. Why does the timing of the schedule matter? And it's like, dude, it matters a ton. Like you kind of want to, if you, these teams, they look at, and it obviously you can't do even quadrants like you used to be able to when it was a 16 game schedule, but you want to go, you want to think of that schedule where every 4 games you finish at 3-1 and you're probably going to win the division. That would be a 12-4 record. Now with the extra game, whatever. But you want to if you start off that season 3-1, which based on, or 4-1, 3-2, based on those teams that you rattled off at the start of that Bears schedule, solid. Who knows what the middle of the schedule is going to be? It sounds like it's going to be a lot more division heavy in the middle of that Bears schedule, but then you finish it off with, if you finish off those last 4 games going 2-2 or 3-1 again, like you're absolutely talking about a playoff spot. They made some really, I think we're both obviously in love with the DJ Moore move. They've made some more improvements on that defense through the draft. They got themselves, now it looks like 2 solid offensive tackles, which they've needed for a while. Yeah. It's just going to come I think I'm at the point where the only excuse that Justin Fields has left is if Matt Eberflus is a total flop. But if Eberflus puts together a nice game plan defensively, and whoever the OC is puts together a nice
former Packer coach Luke Getsy.
Okay, right on. If they can put together a nice game plan and it still doesn't work for Fields, then he's probably out. I don't think there's any excuses left for Justin. I'm not saying you're going to have to. If they end up again with the number 1 overall pick, the conversation's over with Fields. Or if they end up with a top 5 pick, I think the conversation might be over for Fields. And it's like, hey, we gotta move off this guy, and he just isn't it. Which that's fine. A lot of times, we've discussed this before. The first 5 quarterbacks, if you got 5 quarterbacks that are taken in the first round, there's often 1 generational talent. There's often 1 total bust. There's 1 guy that's in the middle of the road, and then there's 2 guys that, hey, we're in year 3. We don't quite know. That's exactly how this draft is playing out, where you've got Trevor Lawrence as the generational talent. You've got Zach Wilson as the bust. You've got the 2 unknowns in Lance and Fields, and you've got Mac Jones, he's just average. He's not going to really get worse. He's not really going to get better. He's a system quarterback at best. Are you going to win a title with him? Highly doubt it. But I think this is either the end of the line for Fields, or he's set for an extension, or at least getting that 5th-year option picked up.
Yeah, no, I agree completely with that. And this will be a make or break year for him, because like you just touched on, after the season, they're going to have to know if they're going to pick up his 5th-year option.
Let's stick with another team that has a real nice schedule in front of them. And I made this spicy take that I believe you may have rated it as a Carolina Reaper. I said the Houston Texans make the playoffs or have a winning record and compete for a wild card spot. And this schedule shapes up pretty nice. Their teams that they're facing: Indy twice, Pittsburgh early in the season. Again, I think Pickett's going to get better as he plays more. So to get Pittsburgh early in the season, I wouldn't predict them to win that game, but who knows? Atlanta, New Orleans, we'll see how they play with Derek Carr. Carolina, Tampa, Arizona with probably Colt McCoy. Denver, question mark on Russell Wilson still. Tennessee twice, Cleveland still a question mark. I'm not saying they're going to win all those games, but that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 winnable games. Obviously, they're not going to go 12-0 in those games, but they could win. They could win 8 of those, and we might be looking at an 8-9 team that would just barely meet that, or be just outside that spicy take. But those aren't horrible. That's not a horrible schedule. I believe it was ranked as the second or third easiest schedule based on 2020's records. So this might be a better year than we're thinking. And again, I'm not saying they're winning all those games, and it wouldn't shock me if they win 4 of those games and they go 4-13. But if they go 8-9 in D'Amico Ryan's first season, that's obviously a massive step up.
Yeah, just looking at their schedule right now. Right now, granted, it is way too early, but they're only favored in 2 games the entire season, which I think is that's
probably appropriate.
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of questionable, though, considering that they are in the AFC South, which, again, we've talked numerous times about teams in that division. And then they get the benefit of playing the NFC South this year as well, which we've talked numerous times about the teams in that division.
That's weird that it is only 2 games, given that they probably split. I'd say you probably split with Indy at worst. You probably split with Tennessee at worst. You should be able to get Tampa. You should be able to get Arizona.
Atlanta, you should
Carolina, Atlanta, New Orleans. You could win 2 of those 3. Denver, Cleveland, those are toss-ups. Pittsburgh, that's probably a loss, but a lot of times Tomlin's teams don't, like, if they're playing a lesser opponent, they don't always come in as motivated as they should. Tomlin's record as an underdog, especially at home, is incredible. He's awesome as an underdog at home, but he also loses a lot of these teams against lesser opponents. The Texans would be one of those lesser opponents that maybe they focus a little bit less on. So no primetime games. It's probably going to be that freaking CBS noon window that's going to be on like your 4th TV, like not appealing whatsoever for the most part, but something that, they may sneakily win 7 games here, if not more.
Yeah, and that could be too why they knew what their opponents were going to be coming up this season. Obviously, you don't know exactly when you're going to be playing them, but you know that obviously playing divisional opponents. We've got the NFC South this year, and we've got a 4th place schedule with where we ended up picking at, having the number 2 overall pick. That may be why they took a chance and traded away all of those assets, traded away the pick to the Arizona Cardinals to move up and grab Will Anderson, because they looked at the schedule and knew, we get CJ Stroud there at number 2. We've got a decent chance here to maybe not be picking inside of the top 10 this year, which, if that's the case, why not trade assets and move up to grab Will Anderson? So I think they potentially could have looked ahead at that schedule and said, hey, let's offload some of these picks and move up to grab Will Anderson, because we have a chance to maybe be a 500 team or maybe a little less, depending on the step forward CJ Stroud makes. So no, they very well could be talking playoffs, especially with the end of their season schedule against 2 matchups against Tennessee, which at that point in time, it could be Will Levis, Cleveland, and then ending with Indianapolis. So yeah, not as crazy as it was when you gave your hot take last week.
And there's also always one of those, like, what the hell games where like Houston ends up beating like San Francisco or something crazy like that. There's always one of those for a lot, half the teams. So, it's still you're playing professionals against professionals, and all these guys on 1-year contracts, which we've mentioned in previous episodes. I mean, it's a laundry list of veterans that are on these 1-year deals. I shouldn't say I'm expecting an 8-9, 9-8 record, but it's out there as a legitimate possibility here.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about some of the international games this year. We got 2 games being played in Frankfurt, Germany. Got Miami and Kansas City, and then Indy versus New England, which that'll be a doozy. But those are going on November 5th and November 12th. And then I wanted to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars always play a London game, but this year they're playing 2 games back-to-back weeks. So just staying in London for back-to-back weeks. How long until they're permanently there? I mean, it seems like we're trending in that direction. The NFL has talked about they want to get their footprint even more so over there. I mean, is this something 5 years, 10 years, never going to happen? Like, what are your thoughts there? We haven't really talked about that too much on the pod, but it just seems like it's trending more that direction. And especially with Jacksonville's attendance historically. I mean, yes, when they're good, their fans will show up to watch them play, but when they're bad, in which they've been bad a lot this last decade, that attendance is very bad.
Yeah, I mean, it feels inevitable that they're going to end up moving there. If the NFL had a do-over on expansion teams, do you think they're picking Jacksonville again?
No,
like, obviously
no
not.
Chance.
So I think this is a chance for them to have a little bit of a do-over. Shad Khan is, he owns not only the Jaguars, but also Fulham FC out in England. I believe he owns, or is at least a part owner of, Wembley Stadium, where the Jags have played all of their London games in the past. This year, they're only playing one of the 2 London games there. The other one is at some other stadium in London. Yeah,
the Hotspurs.
Yep. So I think that's your first international team. It has to be. I think that, Jacksonville as a city, granted, the Jags haven't earned much in terms of support and fandom.
Yeah.
But they haven't shown up. There's a reason that the Jags keep going over there, and they continue to tease that London, that Europe base. And I think it's inevitable that maybe not in the next 2 years, but when that stadium deal is up in Jacksonville, which I don't have those details in front of me,
I'm not sure.
That would be the time for them to make the move and, follow in the A's footsteps and move stadiums, go different cities. But I mean, the other thing that I was thinking, it sucks for anybody that has to probably sucks to be on that team, because every flight you're going to be taking is going to be at least 6 hours coming from London across the pond for any away game. That's a minimum. And any game over there, again, minimum of 6 hours. If there's ever a Jags at Seahawks or vice versa, that's a solid 12 hours, which that's the part that kind of sucks. But so the travel piece is still questionable, but
they could work.
There's a way to work that schedule out where,
because they could just end up going to Seattle or whatever, and then just have a couple more away games before they go back or something. Not ideal for being on the road that long, but they could.
I mean, let's say they've got the NFC West, they go out there for Seattle and San Francisco, and then LA and Arizona fly out to London for their games. Like, there's a way they can work that schedule out where they're not flying back and forth every single week. You'd have to almost stagger it where it'd be like every other week or every third week, where you'd be going back and forth, or where you'd be, home for 2 weeks, away for 2 weeks, which kind of probably gets old, but you'd be the one team in London, the one international team, which would have to come with its perks. So, I mean, I think it's just inevitable that it happens.
Yep.
All right, let's stick with the East Coast here, and let's go over to I was going to say the NFC Jets. That's wrong. New York Jets, wrong conference. The AFC Jets. And poor Aaron Rodgers, he's starting out with a real tough schedule. You open up versus Buffalo, at Dallas, home versus New England. You know, we've heard the draft day stories about how much Belichick hates the Jets. Then you've got Kansas City at Denver. You don't really want to be playing Denver early in the season. We've seen some of those stats where early in the season, playing in that altitude, a lot of players may not be in shape. Now that's week 5, so hopefully by then these players are more, their cardio's up a little bit, but still at Denver, that's still Sean Payton. And then they return home against Philly. That's their first 6 games: Buffalo, Dallas, New England, KC, Denver, Philly. I think they're lucky if they go 2-4 there. And then, I mean, beyond that, you've got a game against the Chargers. You've still got Miami twice. You've got Buffalo again later in the season, given that they're in division. And then to finish off the season, let's say they're fighting for a wild card spot. Guess who?
Atlanta.
At New England, week 18. Yeah. Belichick is going to come out with, guns blazing, trying to keep these guys out of the playoffs. This kind of feels like it might end up being a repeat of the Packers last season with Rodgers in-house, where they've got, a really tough start to the schedule. They start off with a crappy record. They've got some nice cupcakes in the middle of that schedule: the Giants, Raiders, Atlanta, Houston, Washington, Cleveland. That's nice, kind of in the middle of that schedule. But then Rodgers last season, last game, fighting for that wild card spot, the Lions beat them and keep the Packers out of the playoffs. I think is it realistic to be looking at basically a repeat of the Packers last year, now with the Jets under Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I mean, it very well could be if they don't get off to a hot start, but that's a gauntlet. Again, having to play Buffalo twice, Miami twice, and then New England, you don't know what you're going to get there. That game could be extremely snowy in New England to end the season. Granted, Rodgers has played in the ultimate outdoor stadium in Lambeau so many times. I don't really see that affecting him too much. Not going to get the bitter cold that you would in Green Bay. You might get a lot of snow, but week 13 on, if they're in the mix, I really like their schedule down the stretch. So it's versus Atlanta, versus Houston. At Miami is going to be a tougher game, but you're going to get a nice warm environment there at the end of November, beginning of December. Versus Washington, at Cleveland, at New England end the season. So it's kind of a favorable schedule there if they can kind of get onto a roll at that point in time. 5 primetime games this year for the Jets. So get ready to watch them. And that obviously is the Aaron Rodgers effect of him coming over to New York. But kick it off Monday night opener against Buffalo. A solid one. The last team I wanted to talk about here is a team that we've talked about numerous times, their quarterback situation, and what are they going to do if they have a top pick in the draft next year? And that is the Arizona Cardinals. And I wanted to specifically more so talk about, there's a very realistic chance that they could have this one pick. You're going to have Kyler Murray out for an extended period of time, Colt McCoy back there, and then week 12 on, versus the Rams, which Rams should bounce back this year.
They can't be as bad as last year.
At Pittsburgh. Then you have your bye week. Come back home.
Bye week that late too.
Yep. Come back home, play San Francisco. Go to Chicago in December. Go to Philly in December. And then come back home to face Gino and Seattle to end the season. There's a very realistic chance after week 12, Arizona does not win another game.
Well, and that's going to be the tricky part too, is because if let's say week 10, the Cardinals are 2-8, something like that. Do you bring back Kyler for those following games, knowing that you've got that gauntlet in front of you? Or do you just say, screw it, sit down. We're not even going to worry. He wouldn't be rushed back at that point even. I mean, the way these ACLs heal now. But would you even bring him back and make him face that gauntlet? That might make his trade value even worse if you do play him against those defenses. I mean, you named them, San Fran, Philly, like those are probably the two top defenses in the NFC, right? They're easily the top two defenses in the NFC. So that's going to be tricky to see. That'll be fun to kind of see how the Cardinals end up managing that.
Oh yeah. Big time.
I've got one final quick topic, and that is just that there are 3 Monday Night Football doubleheaders this season. One in week 2, one in week 3, and one in week 14. Who's asking for this? I mean, like we're already getting Thursday night, which we're now accustomed to the Thursday night, Saturday college, Sunday NFL, Monday you get one game just as kind of like a, almost like a nightcap to the weekend. I don't understand this. Week 2, you've got New Orleans at Carolina. That game starts at 6:15 Central. Then you got Cleveland at Pittsburgh starting at 7:15 Central. So they're staggered. So one game's going to be in the second quarter when the first game's going to be in or maybe at halftime when the second game starts. Same thing in week 3, Philly at Tampa, 6:15, Rams at Cincy at 7:15. They're not like they're staggered an hour apart. It's not like, hey, we got one game's in the fourth quarter while the other game is kicking off. No, the second game's going to be like in the middle of the second quarter when the first game's going to be in the middle of the second quarter when the second game kicks off. So that's weird. And then week 14, you got Tennessee at Miami and then Green Bay at the Giants, both kicking off at the same time. What the fuck? What's happening? Who asked for this? I'm cool with the one weekend where there's a doubleheader on Monday night. Like that kind of feels, that feels kind of cool. It's like, hey, but at least do like what they did during COVID and have one game starting at when they had to play that random Tuesday night game because of these COVID restrictions, where one game started at 4:15 and the next game started at 7:15. At least do that, or 5:15 and 9:15 or 8:15 or whatever. Like, if you're going to have two games, why are they on at the same time or staggered by 1 hour? If you're going to stagger them, do it by 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
I don't understand this, because now you're going to be getting split ratings too. So these advertisers are going to be sitting there like, okay, I'm only going to be getting half the viewership than I normally would. Why am I paying full money for this? I don't even understand the business. So that's just me thinking about the business side of it, which I don't understand. Who asked for this? The advertisers couldn't have. Did ESPN, ABC ask for it? But they're going to be splitting their viewership over now 2 separate channels that they own both. I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I was accustomed to the doubleheaders from last year, which I hated, that the first game would kick off at 6, and then you'd have another one at 9 o'clock, and you'd be up till midnight if you wanted to watch the second game.
Right, but that actually
1
makes
o'clock
sense
on the East Coast. But at least, you could watch both games. It's not ideal, but if they're going to do a doubleheader, at least you can tune into both of them. But this makes absolutely no sense, and I'm very curious to hear why they went and did this. I mean, again, it's nice that you just throw on your laptop or something and probably stream both games, but it's not ideal at all. And why, again, like you said, we're inundated with so much football as it is, with Thursday, all day Sunday, and then throw the Monday game on there. We don't need a doubleheader. If you want to do that the first week of the season to kick it off, that's totally fine. They've done that in the past, or even week 2, fine. But to have it another 2 weeks and then again week 14 with them both kicking off at the same time, what sense does that make at all? Just stupid.
And on top of that, your home teams, Carolina, Pittsburgh, Tampa, Cincinnati, Miami, New York Giants. What do all those 6 teams have in common? They're all on the East Coast. You could have scheduled this so that you've got West Coast teams kicking off later in the night so that you could go have back-to-back Monday night games. but I guess they had to probably start them at 7:15 because they're all their second
East
game
Coast.
at East. Given that they're all East Coast teams, like if you're gonna do this, at least do it right, not with 6 East Coast teams that for your host. This
you're on the West Coast. Have fun listening to the start of the game on the radio. You're on your way home from work. Jeez.
No kidding.
Gosh, just mind-boggling. Moving into golf, going to quick recap the Byron Nelson here, and congratulations, Jason Day, getting his 13th career win and first title in 5 years. So
I love it. I love it. So I loved it when he was like on that run that he was probably 5-6 years ago.
2015. That's when he won the PGA championship. It's been a long time. So yeah, he's been playing some phenomenal golf so far this year. Absolutely. So it's awesome that he got back into the winner's circle, and yeah, awesome job by him. Don't have a ton more from that, Joe, other than congratulations. You were finally in the missed cut category with Michael Kim shooting a solid +1, and KH Lee didn't get the trifecta, the back-to-back-to-back champs, but did get me 12 strokes in her pick'em.
Yeah, he looked shaky.
Yeah.
Thursday, Friday. I mean, you were talking about, hey, like this guy might miss the cut. What did he go birdie to finish or something like that
on Friday? I don't know if it was birdie, but he made a birdie on the last hole, which essentially the cut line ended up moving up, which saved him, because if he would have parred, he would have missed the cut. So
he saved himself and then just went bonkers on Saturday, Sunday. Good for him. Michael Kim, what am I doing? I was so scarred by Rory that I just went the complete opposite way. Just it's one of those things where you're dating one girl and she's like this real, conservative, go lucky girl. And it's like, I don't know if this is going to work. So you move on to the next person that you date, and she's this just absolute freak, staying out till 4 a.m. Like, you never know really where she is. Like, you're just going the complete opposite way here, complete overreaction. And that's what I did. That's exactly what I did. I went from one of the top players in the world to who the fuck is Michael Kim? And this is what I get. Just burned both times. So, Rory, you're still dead to me. Scotty Scheffler, but finally getting himself into the top 5 with a 20 under. So see if he can ride some of that momentum going into the PGA Championship.
Absolutely, which we're going to get into now. Curious to see what end of the spectrum your picks come in on for this one. But
I tell you what, Rory's not on there. He's dead to me. Dead to me.
PGA Championship at Oak Hill Country Club, just outside of Rochester, New York. Par 70 at 7,300 yards, 7,394 yards. So fairly lengthy. Justin Thomas defending
for a par
champion.
70 especially.
Yeah. Justin Thomas defending champion. Again, this tournament rotates around each year. So last year was at Southern Hills down in Oklahoma, and obviously up in New York this year. Other notable, Jordan Spieth going for his career Grand Slam. This is his 7th attempt to get the PGA Championship, his last one that he needs, the Wanamaker Trophy. Not going to run through the notables. I'd be reading off at pretty much every golfer in this with all the stars out. No Tiger, but get a mixture of live guys in this one as well. And curious to see where some of these guys fall at odds, Joe.
Yeah, no shock. Your top 2 golfers here at plus 750 are Jon Rahm, Scotty Scheffler, both even odds to win this title or win this major. Rory McIlroy still somehow in the top 3 there at plus 1,000. Dead to me. Dig his grave. Xander Schauffele follows him at plus 1,800. Brooks Koepka as your top live guy at plus 2,000. Patrick Cantley, reigning champion Justin Thomas at plus 2,000. Couple other live guys to throw in the mix here. DJ in the mix at plus 2,500. Cam Smith at plus 3,000, and then Gucci Mane, Taylor Gooch at plus 8,500. Notable player missing and will be the theme of the entire rest of the season. Will Zalatoris. He did finish last last PGA championship in a playoff against Justin Thomas, lost it in that first playoff hole, but sad to see him out. Hopefully he can bounce back with that body of Gumby.
Big time. Each week we typically pick a golfer and just kind of use their strokes relative to par as our running total. With the majors, if you're new to this, we do a little bit different style. We pick 5 golfers to go head to head in a Ryder Cup format versus each other. So whoever wins that matchup, you get a point. If you tie, it's a half point. Both guys miss the cut, no points. So I did get the one point victory over Gel in the Masters. So I do have a one matchup lead there. Once you pick a golfer, you cannot use them again, and you can't pick the same golfer as your opponent for this. We're also incorporating it to where you have to have 4 live guys total. We each used 1 this last time in the Masters. Gel got the first pick last time, and I'll just run through golfers Gel cannot use: Scotty Scheffler, Dustin Johnson, Xander Schauffele, Jason Day, Corey Connors. I cannot use Gel's boy Rory McIlroy, Brooks Koepka, Max Homa, Colin Morikawa, or Tony Finau. Gel had first pick for the Masters, so I am up with my first golfer. I don't necessarily know if I want to use this guy here, Gel, but I want control of when I use them, and I don't want to have to rely on maybe having them for the U.S. Open. I'm not as confident with them for the British, or I guess the Open Championship. So my first golfer off the board. He's been playing some awesome golf right now. And again, I don't know if with your first pick, if you would have used him for the U.S. Open, but I want control over that, and I would want him for a PGA Championship. So I'm going Jon Rahm. He seems to be dialed in right now.
He's absolutely dialed in. I wasn't going to use him here, but I'm not saying I can be against the pick the way that he's playing right now. I mean, he's absolutely money. So no fault, not faulting you here. Just to be clear, we are doing head to head with our picks, correct?
Correct. Yes. So your next golfer will be going head to head versus Jon Rahm, and then you'll kick off our second matchup.
Perfect. Okay. I'm gonna get my golly jeepers. I'm gonna go. Okay, this player played freaking awesome against Rory in a previous head-to-head matchup. Cam Young, I just love his ball striking. He's been pretty clutch here as of late. When it matters, he's been clutch. Dude can pound the shit out of the ball, and as long as he can keep it straight, he's going to be in any tournament. So I like myself a little Cam Young here with my first pick.
I like it. No, he's been playing some phenomenal golf, and this course should suit him pretty well. Tough greens, very small. So guy that can hit the ball a long ways, have a shorter shot in, should definitely benefit him.
Number 2 pick overall. I'm going to get a liver here. And I'm going to go Joaquin Niemann.
Ooh.
His game fits this course from what I've been reading online. It's hard because you don't watch. I mean, okay, maybe you do. I haven't watched a second of Live Golf. I've kind of been looking at a little bit of it online to see kind of who's hot, but not that I really care. It almost feels like the USFL of golf, but he has been playing a lot. He's been playing pretty nice lately. He's had his times where he's shined on the PGA Tour. We'll see if he can get it together. I'm going to go get another live guy out of the way here, though, and get Mr. Niemann.
I like it. Well, I will see your live golfer and raise you one here, and we'll keep our tradition going of the live guys facing each other. And I'm going to go with the guy coming fresh off of a victory on the Live Tour last week in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and that is Dustin Johnson. He has finally seemed to be turning it around, playing some decent golf. So I know you used him for the Masters, so I'm going to use him here, even though Probably could have saved him till later, but I've got a strategy going here. Should be okay.
Well, it's not like
with
I could have
that.
used him, so
Yeah, exactly. But so I'm going to use him here. And then I'm going to turn it around here, kick off our third matchup with a guy that has been playing some pretty solid golf, has been playing pretty well at the PGA Championship, hasn't had a victory in a little while. And I'm going to go with Big Dick Ricky Fowler.
Oh, Big Dick Rick.
Ricky Fowler, yes. So Ricky's been playing pretty solid lately and seems to kind of have that turnaround. Hasn't shown, at least in the winner's circle, at least with that, but I like him on this course. And again, he's been playing pretty solid, so I feel comfortable using him for this tournament. And I don't know if I'll be able to use him in the U.S. Open. Usually tougher conditions, that thick rough. So I'm gonna unlock him here at the PGA Championship.
Let's see if he's gonna be rocking that blaze orange on Sunday.
Got to get there.
Is he still just doing just the dirty stash? He's been rocking that still.
Yeah, I think so. Pretty sure. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I feel pretty good about my matchup here against Fowler. I'm gonna go Terrell Hatton. He's been playing really nice golf. I know he's one of your favorites.
Thought maybe we were going to see whose dick was bigger, John. You would have went Victor Hovland here.
Big Dick Rick versus Big Dick Vic. Damn it. Oh shoot, I should have. No, I'll be safe. I'll be using him probably later in the year. But no, Terrell Hatton, he's had a number of T5s, or I guess top 5 finishes, top 10s. The way that he's been playing lately, I trust him a little bit. So I'm going to go Terrell Hatton there.
I like it.
Going back around, winner in that Mexico Open a couple weeks ago, I'm going Tony F. Mr. Finau. We saw him last year win a few tournaments, but he's still hot this year. I want to ride that train a little bit, as long as I can. We've seen Finau he can be very streaky, where he's either like dialed or he is just like total wild card, where he could be dialed in or he could be trash. But I think I've got the dialed in Finau right now, and I'm going to ride that.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot. He's been playing some awesome golf and he's hot right now, and that's what you want. And that is why I am going to match up Jason Day versus Tony Finau. Jason Day coming fresh off of the Byron Nelson Championship. Got a lot of confidence going right now, playing some of the best golf he's played in years. So I'm going to use him right now before he hits that cold streak. And
he's the same way. He's the same way.
Yep.
I would have probably wanted Day here in this tournament, but I used him last time and he got me a solid 5 over. So thanks a lot, Dick.
Yeah, hopefully shows up better than that. And the last golfer I'm going to use here, again, I felt comfortable using Dustin Johnson earlier because the remaining 2 golfers I wanted were ones you've already used, and I'm going to use Scotty Scheffler. So I'm going to round out with, I've got the 2 favorites on my team this week. So hopefully that helps me out. Scotty's been playing some awesome golf, played awesome last week at the Byron Nelson. So I'm comfortable with him. He's right up there for number 1 player in the world behind Jon Rahm. So they'll be duking it out this week for that. And Scotty going for another major championship.
Not a bad strategy, taking the top 2 golfers in the world right now. All right. Respect. I'm going to get a second live golfer in here.
Okay.
And it's going to be plus 2,000. Brooks Koepka. He played really well for the most part in the Masters up until that final day. And this will be a fun one to see. Scotty, top 2 player on the PGA Tour. Brooks probably at this point, the number 1 player on live. This will be a fun matchup. So Brooks Koepka, I think he's got a chance. He played really well in the Masters. I don't see why he'd fall off going into the PGA Championship.
No, that's solid. I used him in the Masters, so he wasn't available for me, but definitely a tournament that he always shows up for and has a couple of trophies on his shelf to show that.
Sure does.
So just to recap, Josh, I've got Jon Rahm versus Gels Cam Young. Dustin Johnson versus Gels Joaquin Neiman, Ricky Fowler versus Gels Terrell Hatton, Jason Day versus Gels Tony Baloney Finau, and Scotty Scheffler versus Brooks Koepka. So we will be back next week to
Strong
recap
10.
that. Yes, solid 10. And yeah, I'm pretty pumped. I got pretty much I think I got everybody I wanted. So I am happy. We could be
Did you have any I don't want to spoil anything for future drafts here, but did you have anybody, maybe a little bit lower on the board that were kind of outside looking in, or were you mostly going for kind of?
I was mostly going
guys?
Favorites here. The other two I have written down that I was between. Justin Thomas, he usually shows up pretty well at the PGA Championship. Obviously came back from 7 shots down last year to win that. And Patrick Cantlay's been playing unbelievable right now too. So he was somebody else I was toying with to throw into this one as well.
Yeah, I had Cantlay on my outside looking in as well, and then Seamus Power, he's I was thinking about him, but didn't want to pull the trigger quite yet. See a little bit more out of him going forward.
Nice. We can be found
at Hardly Know Her.
Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Go to YouTube, Dead Arm Sports, into that search bar. Subscribe, click the bell there. That way you know when our live episodes drop. Monitor that chat. You can ask us any questions there. Otherwise, hit us up on our socials at Dead Arm Sports, at DosGel, at DosJPEG. Subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send us a screenshot and you will get some swag. What are those platforms, Joe?
Hit us up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Pods. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on whatever your chosen listening platform is. Find us on YouTube. Just search Dead Arm Sports. Should be the first channel that pops up at the top of the search results. Make sure to subscribe there. Hit that bell so that you get notifications whenever we go live, whenever we crank out any new content.
All right, so that'll wrap up this episode. We'll be back with you either tomorrow or on Friday, so make sure you subscribe on your listening platforms. You'll know when the episode drops. Going to kick off and have quite a bit of MLB and any other news that pops up in the meantime, but mostly MLB focused on that one. Should be pretty solid at time there. If you could tell someone you know about the podcast, that would be much appreciated. Help us spread the word. And Joe, close her out.
I think you know what time it is. Who was that number 1 overall pick?
Ding dong.